Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. As always, I hope you are doing well. Before we dive into today's conversation with our guest, I'd like to make a very quick but important announcement. I have revamped our newsletter. And I don't like calling it a newsletter because to me, it's a lot more special than that. A lot of effort goes into it. But what I am doing is I am pausing or stopping the Mindful Yoga Teachers Club after almost 2 years of running it. For reasons that I will explain to you in the weeks ahead. Okay. But what I'm doing now is taking a lot of what we do in the club, as well as a lot of things we do in teacher trainings and conversations here. I'm taking that into the newsletter. And I want the newsletter to be this free resource that you get every 2 weeks in your inbox, and every week is connected. So every 2 weeks, you're having like mini workshops and teacher enhancement and development and continuing education going on for free. I have moved away from Instagram a lot. I do post in stories, mainly Munch and what Munch and I are up to, honestly. But I have moved away from actively posting on the grid because there's just so much noise. And I'm trying to practice more pratyahara for myself in many ways. So the newsletter seems like a sanctuary compared to the noise online. And I know a lot of you are not even on social media. So I want you to make sure that you sign up for this newsletter. It's a new link. So if you've signed up, say 6 years ago or even 6 months ago, make sure you click in the show description on your podcast app or on our Instagram handle. Make sure you click that link, get on this new bi-monthly newsletter. I will be sending out the first one, okay, the week you're listening to this one. Okay. And I'll give you a preview of it on Instagram as well. And I'm really excited for it. It's going to be our little hub where we'll have a lot of deeper conversations and enhancement of teachers and our skill set and our understanding of yoga. So make sure you go to the link in the podcast description for that. And on the show today, I have Nidhi Pandya. She is an Ayurvedic practitioner and she carries generational Ayurvedic wisdom from her grandfather, who was an Ayurvedic healer in India. And she has been immersed in Ayurveda since birth. And Nidhi has classical Ayurveda training from the scriptures. She's a TEDx speaker. She's a Ayurveda teacher, a writer, a practitioner, and she essentially wears a lot of hats. And she's also a content creator. And that's how we connected. I found her account when one of my yoga teachers at the studio had shared something. You'll see her work featured in publications like the Chopra Center, the Shakti School, Mind Body Green, One Commune, Google, Indie Wild, Ranawat, and other publications, okay, such as Vogue and Harper's and Bazaar, Times of India, and so much more. Nidhi and I connected about yoga and Ayurveda. And I was very keen to do an episode where we talk about the link between yoga and Ayurveda from a very practical standpoint for us asana teachers in modern yoga. So we get into a lot of conversations about what is the commonality between the two. Are they sister sciences, and why so? We talk about the doshas. We talk about the different type of asanas that one needs to do. We talk about pranayama, but what Nidhi does really well is she zooms us out. And she gives us a very practical understanding of how to really understand this in our bodies, in our beings, and in our present moment, instead of just reaching for another quiz, another checklist, or reading another book. And I don't want to give away too much of that. I want you to listen to it from her in the interview. I really hope you enjoy it. Nidhi is also the creator of The Inner Climate, which is a revolutionary approach to wellness. She's working on a couple of books and lives in New York. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you do, please let us know on Instagram. Make sure you screenshot, you tag Nidhi, you tag me. Tell us what were your biggest takeaways from this one. I know what mine was, and I talk about it at the end of the episode. As always, I will see you at the end of the show. Hi, Nidhi. Welcome to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Anuditi. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking about all things yoga and Ayurveda.
You know, I discovered your account on Instagram when one of our studio teachers posted something. And that's kind of, then I went down that whole rabbit hole of like exploring all that you do. What I really enjoyed is how relatable you make Ayurveda and you bring it into today's day and age, right? And that is something I'm really, I think, is required for things like yoga and Ayurveda. Make it relatable. And it's hard, like we were talking about before recording, in those short, bite-sized, to give context. So I'm really excited to dive into exploring the link between yoga and Ayurveda. Okay. And we have a lot of yoga teachers and students who listen to this podcast. So where do we want to start? I've often heard yoga and Ayurveda being called sister sciences. Okay. Why is that?
So, I'll tell you, firstly, they come from the same family. They come from the Vedas, all the ancient sciences. And what's common about these sciences is that these sciences were understood not always through experiments in the laboratory, but through a keen observation of self and the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And given that, the Vedas were written. Now, the Vedas, the four Vedas with several subsections and the Upanishads, what they really carry is the wisdom of the universe, which said that whoever you are, whatever your question is, and when I say whatever, it means whatever your question is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want to be a warrior? There is a text for you. You want to be a farmer? We will have information for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what has really kind of trickled down and become still really relevant today are these two sciences of yoga and Ayurveda.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in the world today actually get into yoga because they realize it's a calming form of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they actually get into yoga. And they get on their mat and they do asana. And the asana starts connecting them to them through their breath, because they've never really understood that, hey, I can connect my breath and my movement. And when you do that mindfully, and we actually don't inhale and exhale evenly as we should be doing. In our time, we inhale more and we exhale less. But the inhale puts our body into an action mode, what we call the sympathetic mode, that we are like doing something on the planet. But the exhale puts us in repair mode, and we're not doing that enough. In a yoga class, you even out your breath and you move and you become mindful of it in a yoga asana class. And then you find this calm connection within as you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yoga that starts off as an exercise practice really starts connecting people to themselves. The path, the goal of yoga, as yoga was meant to be, was to use asana as one of the steps to really come closer to one's self. So yoga is that discovery of the oneness with the universe through a series of 8 steps, the Ashtanga that we talk about. And it's not the Western Ashtanga yoga. I mean, it's Patanjali's
8 limbs.
Right? So that's the yoga I'm talking about. Now, so it's this vehicle. What is your vehicle to find yourself and come closer to your own reality and where you come from the universe is yoga. It's that science. But the vehicle for that is your human body. And the maintenance of the human body comes from Ayurveda. So Ayurveda says you have an aim as a human being. If your aim could be to become a rich businessman, Ayurveda will still help you. Your aim could be to do whatever you want on the planet. Ayurveda will still tell you exactly what you want to do. But specifically when you're practicing yoga and you realize that you really have to use this vehicle very carefully, because it is your laboratory, your chance to get closer to your truth, preservation of that body. It's like preserving your laboratory, and that comes through Ayurveda. But the one thing that I want to say, Arundhati, is the first of the Ashtanga says that all imbalance, right, comes from certain mental emotions, right? So greed and desires, those are the start. And so that will create not only a certain chemical reaction in your body, but a tendency for a certain action, which may be less than optimum for your body, and that will lead to disease. So if the goal of the human body to be disease free, I need to eliminate these. I need to eliminate greed, anger, jealousy, etc. Then again, I go to the path of yoga to do that. So I use yoga to support Ayurveda, which says you can be free of diseases without these. And then you use Ayurveda to support your yoga practice. And in that way, this gross science of the body and the subtle science of the mind and the soul and the spirit, they really support each other and they align. Because whether in this lifetime or through various lifetimes, eventually the goal of human life is to discover who you are and find that. And you may choose not to do it in this lifetime, and Ayurveda will still support you, but especially supports a yogi.
I think what has happened a lot in popular modern day yoga and Ayurveda probably is we tend to compartmentalize everything. Like, oh, Ayurveda is separate, yoga is separate, but they're actually so integrated. We've kind of divided them in this new age of how, I'm not going into capitalism and how that works and has influenced all of this. But so I really like how you said it's about preserving that laboratory, right? Preserving the body. So because we're talking to largely yoga teachers, we know in yoga there are asanas, there are pranayamas, there are dhyana practices, there are kriyas. So what would be if I may call this a go-to list in Ayurveda? Like, I know food is like an important aspect. Are there a list of these practices that one should keep in mind?
So I'll tell you there's an academic approach to Ayurveda and there's an academic approach to yoga. And I personally, Arundhati, I'm not fond of this academic approach, right? Because I think yoga is done beyond the pranayam and the asana and the yama and niyam. I mean, that's why yama niyam hold such a big value, because you need to practice them even when you're not on. You need to practice them even when you're not doing pranayam, even when you're not in dhyan or doing. So the goal is that yoga is not done as a series of practices. It's integrated into your life. Who is Ayurveda? And when we do it as a prescription, right? Like, hey, I need to do A, B, C, D, E to be following Ayurveda, it becomes almost very prescriptive. But I look at both of these sciences. They're both sciences of balance. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that, but I'll do that later. The first, just to answer your question, the one thing that Ayurveda says is that there are three pillars: ahar, that is your food and diet; nidra, which is your sleep and repair; and brahmacharya. And ahar, nidra, and brahmacharya, your life should be designed. These are the three pillars to health. And your life should be designed to keep these three pillars at their optimum. Because if you do, then you are going to stay in balance. And where does all imbalance arise from? Is from pradnya aparadha, which is crime against your own innate wisdom, which means that even if you're stressed and you're eating one extra bag of chips, somewhere inside, there's a little child who pushes another child. Even that child knows somewhere inside, this is not. So that wisdom, to constantly tap into wisdom, when you tap into that wisdom, you're always in the right direction. You're staying up 3 hours late watching TV show, inside somewhere, this can't be serving me right. Pradnya Pradha, which causes all imbalances, whether you're practicing yoga or your Ayurveda, is the cause. So I think the memory of that, the remembrance of that through your day is practicing Ayurveda. The remembrance of through your day eventually will also get you to the path of yoga, right? As well as, but then if you want to make it in more practical terms, we say, how am I eating, right? And bring mindfulness to that. Is my body sleeping the way it should be, right time, all of those protocols around it. And then brahmacharya again takes you to a deeper place, because brahmacharya, which is not restraint, but discipline around, sexual activity. So the reason why this is important not because sexual activity is a stigma, not at all. It's not tabooed at all.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you use your juices in your body? Your juices are really what carry energy. Your juices carry life. Your juices carry life within. We are moist beings. Moisture is very important in the body. So how fast are you losing that moisture? How much are you depleting yourself of those essential juices? And that's why brahmacharya becomes important. In fact, Arundhati, I always say that the path to aging is from becoming, we are grapes, we are young and supple and tight skin when we, and then we become raisins
Oh, totally.
as we age, right? And that journey is the loss of essential moisture. So that's why brahmacharya, you could be doing everything right, but if you're depleting yourself of your body's essential fluids, then imbalance is on the way. So these are the three pillars, I would say, of Ayurveda. Technically, it's to be followed throughout the day. The one thing that I do say, Arundhati, is when I talk about balance in yoga, Sushumna and Ida and Pingla, the nadis. So Ida, that is energy of Soma, or cool, moist energy, the energy of the moon. And your Pingla, which carries the sun energy and heating and more drying energy. When they're both in a aligned place at your subtle body, at the level of the subtle body, and you can use the breath to kind of start achieving that, then there is an awakening. When they're balanced, and then you have a possibility of an awakening, which means then you can play with your breath, and you can awaken something within you. That environment, right, where cool and moist, the energy of the sun merges with the energy of the heat, is a place of warmth and moisture. And that's at your subtle level. In Ayurveda, you're trying to achieve the same exact environment, the warm and moist environment, through Ayurveda. It is the place where all of the three doshas are aligned. If you see, kapha is more humid and cold, pitta is hot, humid, vata is cool and dry. But if you were to put them on a map and say, where do they come into balance? It is this place of warm and moist. So Ayurveda is trying to achieve the same exact environment through your physical body as yoga is in your subtle body.
Okay. So I'm really fascinated with this, the fact that you brought up moisture, right? And I've never heard it being explained like that. So common understanding would be we deplete ourselves of that moisture because of how we live and all our stressors and our overindulgence in our sensory pleasures. And I would, can we extend that beyond sexual pleasure? Like just too much of, say, watching something, say binging on Netflix, listening to something that's constantly negative or toxic, talking too much. All of that also takes away that moisture, correct? Or am I understanding it? Okay.
No, you're understanding it in its perfect sense, Arundhati. Whether it's drinking excess caffeine or alcohol or overworking or staying up too late or stress or worry or consuming a lot of negative media. These are all, we experience it. We feel the dehydration. If you stay up
so true.
nights,
so true.
You will feel the dehydration, and the dehydration can never be replenished by H2O. H2O, I mean, then you would take a bath for 3 hours and you would be moist. When you take a bath for 3 hours, you are dry, right?
Yeah.
So H2O is the opposite. It's the opposite of what your body needs. It's not the type of moisture. It cleans out all. In fact, H2O makes you less unctuous, less oleated as your body should be, right? That's why your skin is super dry after a bath. And we will get into oiling our body and oiling everything, because it's very important for yogis. There are some common practices that asana teachers and asana people who practice asana do. We'll get into that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. All of these things kind of dry out your juices. I don't even like to use the word dehydrated because people automatically assume the opposite of dehydration is drink excess water. But what they're actually is taking away this whole lovely environment that your body has. This so like almost like oil,
No, I get the concept of moisture. I mean, I can feel it in my, like, as you're talking, I'm like, you're so right about everybody's like hydrate, 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 right? And nothing in your life is really changing much, even after you are drinking those gallons of water. And there are two sides of the aisle, right? Some say don't drink too much water. Some say drink a lot of water. But without getting lost there, you brought up doshas. And doshas they've intrigued me. So how much of dosha knowledge, I'm saying knowledge, not necessarily information, because there's so much of that available and oversimplified too, right? So how much of knowledge does the average asana teacher need to have about doshas,
Oh,
their own doshas, and does that come into teaching asana in some way?
yes. So teaching asana, yes, I'll give you. Right. So firstly, we all have all three doshas. Kapha is the function that's allowing you to build in your body. Uh, Pitta is allowing you to transform everything, your food, your thoughts, all of that. And Vata helps in moving substances and then eliminating them when elimination is required, right? So building transformation and movement, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, everywhere in the world cycle exists, whether it's spring, summer, fall, it's everywhere, micro to the most macro, right? But as an asana, how much is important to understand? While your body has all three, you may have a tendency of one of these to be exaggerated. So you could be building more than transforming and moving, right? And these three people generally look differently. Look, we all have all three. So we can see various doshas coming up in various places. And that's why I tell people that don't get obsessed with your dosha because it's changing all the time. We have an inherent tendency where you live, what you eat, what jobs you do, everything changes. That being said, so if you're an asana, if you practice asana, and if you're the kind of person who's probably, who's maybe overnourished and has excessive tissue in the body and likes to be a little, and for whom exercise is not a happy thing to do, you'd rather sleep into your bed. And that we could typically say it's a kapha tendency showing up. And if that is showing up, and for asana, especially for teachers, I always say they actually need more sun practice. They need more of a stimulating sun practice. Even if doing Surya Namaskars, they need to open their hearts a little more. They need to warm up their bodies a little more. And that's the advice that I can give for them, that it's hard for them to get them on the mat, but you push yourself on the mat and then warm up. They would be waiting for Shavasana. The goal is to get engaged at a time before that.
So
the
can
second,
I just want to quickly step in and ask you. So that's more tamasic in nature, and you're saying get more rajas in them, or should I not go there?
No, we can go there, and in fact, an imbalanced kapha is often associated with tamas. With density. Kapha is the building block. Dense, it's matter, right? That's why they're overnourished, they're bigger. And when they go off balance, it increases the density in the body, it increases the cloud in the body. So you're right, it brings about a certain tamas and you stimulate it, you get it moved. What is even tapa? Tapa is heat applied heat. The word tapa, right, means actually heat. When you say tapasya, it's how do I generate my subtle body to undo my patterns and sanskars. That's internal tapasya. And at a physical level, again, tapa is, okay, this density that has existed, how do I melt this density? So they do require applied heat. They need stimulation, they need exercise, they need to sweat it out at a physical level as well. And they both support each other. Yes. And they both support each other. And it's systemic Agni. It's just awakening that in them, right? So that's what you would do with somebody who has this kapha tendency, somebody who has a pitta tendency, right? Or transforms, or is a person who wants to always be like, what can I do? How can I achieve this? I need to do a headstand. Let me go. Hot yoga, let's do that. Because they love that excessive transformation. And they brought a bigger tendency for that. and they're fierce and they're competitive. And a lot of successful people in the world are made of
Pitta.
pittas in today's world. But honestly, hot yoga is not their thing. Okay, it is not their thing because their bodies are already overheated. And very often I see dehydrated, joints start cracking, all of them. They need to cool down. They need to feel less competitive. They also need to be challenged to say, can you do a little less? Can you not sit around in a yoga class? They say that I know I can do 3 steps more, but today I'm going to stay back a little bit.
To hold back will be hard for them, yeah.
I'm going to just hold back and I'm going to observe my breath instead. And I'm going to really tune into my body. That makes their yoga practice much further because it builds a resilience and a calm and a flow in their mind. Otherwise, they're burning out all the time.
So essentially what I hear you say is that thing you said earlier, right at the top of the interview, is balance. So this is out of balance. The practices that come in are bringing in balance. So in many ways, it's opposites meeting.
And that's what is Ida and Pingla. That's the sun and the moon, right?
Yeah.
That's the kapha. If you overheat the kapha, it'll go on the other side. You have to just warm it up to the point of warmth. Pitta is already too hot. You can't make it too hot. That's why cold is not balanced, hot is not balanced, warm is balanced. And dry is not balanced, humid is not balanced, moist is balanced. Yoga is doing the same thing, Ayurveda is doing the same thing. Listen, it's so funny. Arundhati, we know this as people. Even a baby, they feel comfortable when it's a certain warm temperature, we are comfortable. It's windy, we don't like it. It's cold, we don't like it. We're dry, we don't like it. We're sticky, we don't like it. So we are comfortable with this warm and moist place,
What about Vata then?
Yes. So with Pittas, then the goal is to kind of slow down, do a more cooling practice, do more moon salutations, and, have a cooler room. On summer days, Pittas don't do asana. Pittas take it easy. You don't dehydrate yourself. It's Grishma, summer season. In fact, maybe Kapha Prakriti people can do a little bit of asana. Otherwise, the recommendation is on hot summer days, you don't exercise. Winter, you used to exercise as much as you want, even if it's asana. You go to town in the winter, no problem. But in the summer, you don't. And then let's bring it to third, which is Vata, which means I like to move. I'm fidgety. And I love a yoga class because I can show off my flexibility. So Vata, because they don't have very strong bones and their joints may be double and they may have a lot of air trapped in it, which means they have a lot of space. They have a lot of space to stretch and they're so flexible. And if you look at Vata, you're like, how is she even doing that? She only started practicing yoga a year ago. They may not be regular, but they still end up being regular to yoga because, it's like where they shine.
Good in that.
They shine. You got to tell them to slow down as well. Say, can you hold an asana? Can you use your strength? Can you do more restorative? Can you do Viparit Karni? Can you do more Shavasana? They wouldn't like to do that because Vata likes ability. Their movement is their thing. So you get it. Yoga can be used to get them to slow down.
You're slowing down wind, essentially. You're trying to.
Yeah, wind is always moving. You say, shh. Otherwise, that wind will trap into their joints and they can get into all kinds of shapes and they feel very excited about that. They need to more strength, less flexibility, and slow things down and hold poses longer, do more inversions, do more restorative.
Understood. Okay. No, I get really nerdy about this stuff. So I'm enjoying how you're classifying all of this. And I'm assuming it's the same for pranayama, right? Too much heat, avoid your heating pranayamas. If you are Vata, do more centering, balancing pranayamas. Right? So you extend that same logic of heat and cool into your pranayamas.
100%. You have Pitta, do Chandra Nadi, do Chandra Bhedi Pranayama, do it with your left nostril. You have a lot of, if you have a lot of moisture, Kapha, do Kapalabhati, do your right nostril if you want, but Kapalabhati is traditionally used, especially when you have congestion, in the other half of your body. And you have Vata, do Anulom Bilom.
Because it's balancing. Perfect. Yeah. What I enjoy about yoga and Ayurveda is at its core, it's actually very simplified and it's very practical. We just get lost in the noise or this information overload that we have. So can we talk about dosha imbalance? Like, how often should we be checking for our dosha imbalance or balance? And because what I'm thinking is the listeners will listen to this, they'll be curious about understanding what dosha they are right now, because it changes. Is that our start point? Or is there a better approach?
Yeah, no, I don't think you need to do that, right? You have to ask, what is my symptoms? What is my current symptom? And what are my general tendencies? So, for example, you can say my current symptom is heartburn, and my general tendencies are, general tendencies are, I can get angry, I don't like the sun, I can
I
get
like
heat rash,
spicy food.
spicy food, or spicy food doesn't even do me well. Both, right?
Oh, huh.
Spicy food gives me burn, gives me a breakout all the time. I get rashes. I have burning in my stools. Soy, garlic, chilies. Oh my god! They say I might have inflammation. So you can. So there's a general tendency and there's a specific symptom. And so you be aware, mildly aware, subconsciously aware of your general tendency. Like, for example, and this is a pitta. So what I define right now is tendency to heat up, to transform more. The sun will transform my melanin quickly into color, and my food will like heat up so much, so I'll get heartburn and burning in my stools, etc. Same thing with rash, right? That reaction is so much. You get active body. So then when you know that subconsciously, you're always seeking towards cold. Like when you know it's going to be cold outside, you'll carry a jacket. Similarly, if you know it's hot, you will carry, you will take off clothes. Similarly, you do the same thing. When you know like my daughter has a tendency of pitta, I automatically know summer is not her best friend. I'll give her more white clothing. I'll make sure that she's doing certain types of liquids that are recommended in the summer, or she's doing more coconut. So subconsciously you end up doing it because you have knowledge. I don't think anyone should do a quiz. They should just look at what my tendencies are and what they fall. Do they fall in a building category? Building, people who like to build. For example, let's say a current symptom could be I have this cold and I keep getting repeated colds which have a lot of mucus. General tendency, I have a cold, I can put on weight easily, I like to sleep an extra, I'm bigger built than most people who eat the same amount of food. Cholesterol runs in my family. So everything that's overnourishing, everything that's building. Vatas can say, let me see, like a current symptom could be like I have dry skin. But long-term tendencies, my skin tends to be dry. I tend to get anxious. Sleeping is hard. I'm all over the place. I'm scatterbrained. I can be indecisive. So you find out and I don't think you find it out through a quiz. I think you find it out through introspection, by understanding, is this building?
So true.
Is this
Observation.
Is this? And then you just hold that information gently in your mind. And then you look at the world outside and you say, is this going to add more mobility? For example, a Vata can say, is this going to add more mobility? If I'm going to make 6 plans today, is that going to add more mobility? If I'm going to over exercise and move and go for a run and aggressively, if it's going to add more mobility, don't do it. Is it going to add more dryness? Don't do it. The Pitta is going to add more heat, an intense argument. I'm going to watch every parliament debate out there. It's going to add heat. You don't do it, All my vacations are on a beach. No, take a chill pill, go to the mountains, You got to ask yourself, people are building, I just go to a spa every day. No, don't, It's going to slow you even further. It's going to stagnate you even further. Don't do it. And the same for foods. You can very quickly, by tuning in, start identifying foods that are stimulating, foods that are building, foods that are just so light that they just have no nourishment in them. Vatas need a lot of nourishment. So that's what I tell people that learn through introspection, be prepared for doshas to change, and enjoy them. And even if you just never knew your doshas and you just looked at your symptom and you classified which one of the 3 it was and you worked accordingly, look for the opposing gunas, opposing properties in its treatment, and you'll be.
I like the fact that you're highlighting introspect. don't just grab a list and do a quiz and then be like, I boxed myself into this is what my imbalance is. And I think that encourages people to be more present with themselves. And in many ways, I'm thinking it's like pratyahara in some way, right? You're not feeding your senses more, you're observing what's going on. So, can I jump a little bit into lifestyle? And actually, not even lifestyle. A lot of yoga teachers, right, and people in general, there's a lot of anxiety. Okay. If I stay in the yoga teacher realm, it's like I talk to yoga teachers who are conscious, like continuously anxious about teaching or sharing the practice, right? For whatever reason. And there's confusion there's not enough emphasis on enhancing clarity in modern yoga or contextualizing stuff. So how does one deal with all these mental imbalances, of what I'm going to just call them for now, for lack of a better word? Is there anything you can tell us about how to get more clarity, how to feel more centered? Mind management is what I'm asking about, essentially.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a theory aspect and a practical aspect to this question. So the theory aspect is this, and this was told to me by my gurus as well. The fact that you've chosen to do this in your lifetime, it's not a choice, it becomes a responsibility, right? And you have to feel that, my God, like this was given to me as a responsibility. The minute it's given to you as a responsibility, you actually take authority of it. And if I give you a package and I say, hey, Arundhati, can you deliver this package to this town? Then you will decide where you want to keep it. You won't let anybody else decide or tell you. You will decide how to handle it. You will decide. You automatically assume authority the minute it's given to you. And that's what these sciences are. That it's been given to you, it becomes yours. Self-doubt. People self-doubt because it's like, oh, I'm not Indian. I was not born here. Or I am Indian. I don't know anything. I've only done this for 3 years. No. If you're chosen, and this has come from the right place in your heart, it is a responsibility. It is your responsibility to share it. The problem happens when, instead of focusing on inside, this is what I really know, and this is what I am meant to share. You're only meant to share what you really know.
Yes.
So you can say that I know asana and I know anatomy, and I understand Western anatomy, and I understand asana, and I have a calming voice. That is your gift. Use that only. And you grow your other gifts. But if you say, I know these three things, but I should be adding pranayama, and I don't really understand this, keep that away. Let that be a part of your learning, not a part of your teaching. One day it will transfer over and become a part of your. So be very, firstly, it is, you've been given this, it's your responsibility, you better deliver it. Don't self-doubt it. The reason self-doubt comes is we look outside of us. What is everybody else teaching? What should I be teaching? What is lucrative?
Imposter syndrome,
Yeah. No, don't do that. In your authentic place and science, there will be a place for you. Trust that there is a place. Trust anybody who's done anything great in the world. Didn't do it because he said, let me look out there. What is an opportunity? If you can sustain and make a lasting impact on the planet, you've probably you felt it, you have felt your own gifts. So feel your own gifts, and there will be a place, and it'll change the world. And so that's the second aspect of it. Third aspect, like I said, keep learning what you feel is missing, and you're naturally invited to learn. But really, the deep introspection of what your own gifts are makes the whole journey better. Arundhati, for example, I know there are certain things in Ayurveda that I'm not comfortable with. And if I start treading those areas, and there are times that I'm willing to tread new areas, and then I really do my study with them, and I feel comfortable, and then they become part of my responsibility. But when I'm not, and if I go and I say, I want to talk about this A matter and I don't know anything about it, I'm going to feel anxious. Right? So that's the practically, right? If practically, now getting on a mat in front of 20 people, having people wiggle in their mats, it's not always easy. Somebody as a yoga teacher, it's not comfortable, right? A yoga teacher is a mother. All teachers are mothers. you have the love and the compassion of a mother, but visualization also really helps. Staying centered, yoga is united with yourself, staying centered in yourself. For example, I'm a mother of two, Arundhati. If I'm telling my I made a lovely meal and I'm telling them eat it, and my younger one be like, Mama, and be playing with the spoon. I don't take it personally. Right? It's her journey. As a mother,
Yeah.
my desire was to cook. As a little girl, her desire is to play with her spoon.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly how, as yoga teachers, as carriers of anything, you become mothers. So just trust yourself. I tell people, even in my Ayurveda, Arundhati, sometimes people are like, I just know karmas. I said, that's your thing. You know karmas.
Yeah.
You know it all. I tell you, Arundhati, I've practiced yoga since I was 10, right? So maybe 30 plus years I've practiced yoga in India for several years. And I found a teacher here who probably does not know the nadis, who doesn't know anything in terms of the shastras. What she did know was anatomy really, really well. And she felt the anatomy. She felt it in her body. She reformed my practice. She reformed my posture. She brought me closer to myself more than any other teacher ever has. Right? She used her gift and she used it fully for me to learn about my body. To me, till today, she's my number one yoga teacher.
She made an impact.
She made an impact, and she used only her gifts. She didn't bother what she
Wonderful.
didn't know, and she was fine with it. But when you use it so fully, the other person becomes one with themselves. You are one with your own gifts, that anybody you interact becomes one with their gifts and with themselves.
No, wonderful. I'm completely on board with what you're saying. I've said it often on this podcast. I think sometimes the listeners are fed up of me saying, learn a little yoga and that's enough, and learn it really well. Don't try to go to places you don't know. Stay in your lane. If you know something really well, just go deep into that. And don't teach if you are confused. If you don't have 100% clarity and beyond, don't go near it. Yeah. Don't teach everything. Not you. I don't teach everything in yoga. There are things that scare me to even step into. So work from what you know. And I'm glad you are reiterating that message, because I think it is not said often enough. Is there anything else you think we've left out as we wind things down?
There's a couple of things that I definitely want to say. Is that
Please do.
There's few things that are blasphemous, and these are just practical aspects, right? Which is eating and practicing asana. No, according to Ayurveda, because you eat and you exercise, heat that is supposed to be digesting your food in the gut, and the heat that's supposed to stay concentrated in your gut has now used in other parts of your body. Your food will stay undigested. It'll lead to toxic waste and inflammation. Don't do it. Never. It's blasphemous in my family to eat and exercise. Not happening.
So can I ask a supplementary question there? What's the window between eating and asana practice or exercising?
And it's different for each person. Till you've actually said the body is light, right?
Understood. Okay.
Then you do it. So it's not hungry light. It's not full. It's not full heavy. Okay. And so it could be like, I would say 2 hours, but asana, the ideal time. So the couple of things I want to say. Okay. Ideal time for asana is in the AM. It's the kapha kala. Kapha kala of the day is when everything outside is wet. Even your body is more wet. It's a little more sluggish. Few hours after you wake up. That's the kapha kala of the day. If you do it in the evening, which I know lives have to, I would say make it a more restorative practice. Otherwise, it will wake you up the way you don't want to. Okay. The other thing that I want to say is abhyanga, or applying oil on your body before you do asana, goes a long way in your asana practice, in the nourishment of your tissues, in the strength of your body, in the absorption of vitamin D. It is the food. Some people are like, I need to eat before I exercise. No, that food is abhyanga. Your skin is a channel of consumption. Abhyanga is the application of oil, and if you can massage and rub it in, amazing. But you apply that on your body before you exercise. You see Indian wrestlers and you see oil on their body. It's done. I mean, it's become an aesthetic thing, but it was not aesthetic. It was actually done because when your body heats up, that oil, which is sukshma,
moisturizing
deep into, and again, we are preserving moisture. The story of our lives is to preserve moisture, not make it humid, okay, not make it slimy, but the preservation of moisture. And supports the preservation of moisture in a beautiful manner. Abhyanga does. So I tell all yoga teachers, learn the practice of Abhyanga. And it'll change your life. And it'll, if you can advise this to your students, it'll change their life. And again, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what Abhyanga is, but I'm going to start putting oil. No, sit with this idea for a little bit. Read up a little. Don't read up a lot. Deeper,
important.
wider. Read very little, and then sit with it. Really think about it deeply. You know already. We all know directly. We all know the baby is born on the planet, never used its mouth before, but knows it needs to use its mouth to eat from the mother's breast. That's how precisely we know what we are meant to do, what's good for us. We just know it, right? Somewhere in the world, we get lost and we lose that wisdom of ourselves. Just come back to it deeply.
Such important and really significant call outs, Nidhi. I think I'm glad you are telling people to not just be on the surface of go grab something external, go internal. And my takeaway is preserve moisture as the overarching theme of this one. But there's so much in here. I hope you'll come back for more such conversations. Can you tell the listeners where they can connect with you?
So on a daily basis, you can find me on my Instagram, where I post a few times a week, more than 4 times a week. At least I try 4 or 5 times, a little bits of hopefully relatable, accessible information that you can begin to use right away. I also run a lot of online courses that can be found. But I think my Instagram page will have my website and it will give you all further information. But I teach courses. I work with people one-on-one only over a period of 6 months for a full mind-body transformation program. I write, I teach corporate workshops. I do all of it. So I do teaching, I do writing, and I work with people one-on-one, and I blog on Instagram.
Wonderful. And I will link to all of it in the show notes at letstalk.yoga. Thank you, Nidhi. This has been wonderful, and I hope you will come back for more.
All right. Thank you so much, Aditi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. Make sure you get to that link and sign up for the new newsletter that goes out in a couple of days from when this podcast is dropping. It's available at letstalk.yoga. You can also listen to the show notes and everything that Nidhi has shared on the same link as well. I'll see you next week. We've got another guest lined up, another conversation, and I can't wait to have you listen to that one. Take care. Bye-bye.